During the convo with Destiny, you said we should tolerate a level of misinformation if it begets good outcomes. That's where the lying meme gets based from. I said that I believe in correcting misinformation. When I said tolerate misinformation, I said tolerate it within our movement, aka don't try to cancel and delete people from the movement because they engage in it. Everybody engages in misinformation to some extent. It can be as obvious as outright lying, or it can be as subtle as saying a true thing in a tone which suggests something which isn't true. My response to all of these is the same, that you should determine how harmful that misinformation is being, and then you should use that to inform your decision with how to respond to it. I think that's a very reasonable position, and it's also the one Destiny believes in, no matter what he pretends to believe otherwise. I think that's the objectively correct position to take. So the idea that because a person engages in misinformation, they must like have their channel deleted, like, okay, everyone does this to some extent. So how do you respond to it? And that's my point. But my point has never been lying is okay or good or something.
%0 of you are subscribed. Fix that.
If you really want to get into nuance, though, you can get into, it's like the end of Watchmen, or the Rorschach thing, his death scene, you know? Here's a question that has an interesting answer. What if you could propagate a small lie that fixes a huge social problem? What if it's a lie about an event or a position, and if you lied about it, like, that, like, telling the truth would guarantee some massive social harm? At the end of Watchmen, I guess the movie and the comic book, at the end of Watchmen, Rorschach, who is committed to the truth, or what he believes to be the truth, wants to return to the world and inform all of them that the gigantic catastrophe that they had attributed to, well, a giant alien monster, was actually caused by Ozymandias. That Ozymandias had deliberately killed millions of people to stop the Cold War. Right? So then the question is it worth telling the truth there if it would have reignited a global war? Or what about military secrets? We accept that it's necessary for governments to keep some secrets with regards to the movement of, say, CIA, NSA, FBI agents, and keeping secrets is tantamount to lying. Because if you keep a secret on an issue, you sometimes have to reveal contradictory information, which is a lie, for social good. So then we can say maybe some forms of dishonesty are acceptable if there is some acceptable, like if there's some, like, way of determining that it's viable, like there's some need for it, you know? But how do you determine that? It's really, really hard to do. My position is that dishonesty, or misinformation, not even deliberate dishonesty, is almost always bad. Maybe there's some edge utilitarian case where, like, if I tell this one miniature piece of truth, then a billion people will die or whatever, but that categorically, disinformation, misinformation, dishonesty are bad because they prevent us from being able to make strong decisions in the future about whether or not information should be corrected. That if you lie about something like that, you remove from people the ability to meaningfully comment on and correct those positions in the future. Does that make sense? Wouldn't the world have just united against Ozymandias, VAUSH? Well, in the context of Watchmen, it was pretty clear that if the truth was known, it would have reignited the Cold War. It would have made it a hot war. Oh, do you guys understand what I'm saying? I'm going to be mischaracterized for everything I say on this, but I feel like what I said is just pretty reasonable. We get it, man. Sometimes it's worth it to lie for the greater good. That's not what I said. I can't tell if that was a joke. Well, I'll repeat it, just because I know people are listening and not listening at the same time, but dishonesty is categorically bad because it prevents people from being able to make fully informed decisions as to what is or is not morally acceptable. If a person propagates a lie to further a political cause, that may have short-term benefits, but down the line, it's virtually impossible to then say, okay, I want to adjust this belief. I now believe this. I criticize that, because you aren't being provided the full deck of cards to begin with. Please remind people that grifting does not equal lying. Well, grifting is lying about your sincerity, but I don't necessarily know if that's important. VAUSH, I agree with you that Breonna Taylor getting killed in her sleep was overblown by destiny, but is it possible people could justify lying by claiming that such dishonesty is minuscule when it might sometimes be massive? Yeah, but I think you need to be able to reasonably proportion the severity of dishonesty. When he saw that Breonna Taylor tweet, he said the left and the right engaged in the same amount of disinformation. I think that's ridiculous. That tweet, really? But my position there wasn't that that makes misinformation okay, only that he was being disproportionate. And I think being disproportionate or hyperbolic or misrepresentative about the extent to which somebody's engaging in misinformation is itself tantamount to misinformation. I'll give you an example, because you've all seen this happen before, okay? You've seen this happen in my conversations with other people, okay? Imagine if I was having an argument with somebody, okay? And I was saying like, dude, your point here is bullshit, okay? Back when Martin Luther King Jr., back during the civil rights movements in like 1965 or whatever, back during the civil rights movement, they engaged in this tactic and it was effective. These tactics are effective in propagating like progressivism. And the convo stops. The convo stops and the guy says, 1965? The civil rights movement didn't happen in 1965, you stupid piece of shit. Well, you think it's okay to just like lie to your audience about when the civil rights movement took place? Like, you just like twist history to whatever fits your narrative? Like, that's just good for you? You just think like lying's fine as long as it's convenient to you. And then you back out of the convo. And I'm like, hold on. That wasn't my point. Okay, 1968, whatever. Whatever works, okay? Let's talk about X. Let's talk about Y. And then that person goes, no. I'm sorry. I didn't realize this was the type of conversation that we were having here. I didn't realize that I was talking with a bad faith actor, okay? If you think, you think you can just get caught in a lie like that and just walk it back? You think that you could just, like, misrepresent history however you want, and then when I catch you on it, you get to, like, move it back? No. Okay, fuck you. This conversation is done. And then the person leaves. Now, I would argue that that person, the person who I'm, like, making fun of here, the bad person in this example, is engaging in misinformation. Does that make sense? I think that is misinformation right there, because that disproportionate response gives a certain narrative to the audience, one which is misrepresentative of the actual content of the discussion. Does that make sense? That was my concern. Now, of course, that doesn't mean it's okay to be wrong about the civil rights movement's date. You should still be right about that. And I think that in that case, if the other person had corrected me, if they had said like, hey, it's 1960 or whatever, you know, they had corrected me, they given the appropriate time frame, and I said, oh, okay, all right, my bad, and then we continued, I think that would be the optimal response. You correct misinformation in a manner which is proportional to the the misinformation that is presented, you know? I feel like that's all I can say on this. I feel like anyone who disagrees with what I just said is too far gone. Like off the cuff, but come on!